Breaking news, the real estate market has crashed in 2024. Well, not really. And it doesn't look like it's going to crash anytime soon. But I get this question asked over and over and over again. Will a real estate crash create affordable housing? Now, when I hear affordable housing, that is a term that is thrown out all over the media. And that just sounds like when a crash happens, will homes go from what they may be valued right now at $600,000 to where you're purchasing them at $200,000 and getting a steal of a deal and being able to build upon real estate wealth? Well, what I'm going to share in this video are 5 reasons why I believe that a real estate crash will not create affordable housing. And it is very simply off of what happened back in 2007 and 2008. Now, you might be referencing those times as the Great Recession or a real estate market crash. And just to catch you up to speed, if this is the first time you ever have heard of this, what happened in that process was that there were lending practices that allowed people to lend on their homes more than what their homes were worth because real estate values were accelerating at an extreme rate. There was a lot of inventory on the marketplace. And so a lot of homes were available for sale. There wasn't income verification that was happening. That you'll hear a term called subprime lending. That's where they just went off employment verification. You said, hey, I make $100,000. They say, that sounds good. And boom, here you go. Here's refinance money. Here's a new purchase on a home. And then when the stuff started to shift, payments started to skyrocket because they were not fixed rates. And so there's all sorts of things that went into what is now commonly referred to as the Great Recession or the housing crisis of 2007 and 2008. I would also contend that really the effects of those moments actually extended all the way out to 2011 in some areas. And so in that, what I'm going to share is from experiences of then is if it happened now, would it create affordable housing? Would it create that deal? Now, it would create what you would consider a deal, but here's the 5 reasons of why you may not be able to capitalize on those and why it wouldn't create affordable housing. Number 1 is lending requirements would tighten in a crash. Lending requirements are set by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and those lending requirements tell the lender what is required to lend on that home. And so those lending requirements would start to tighten in such a way where debt to income ratios, the amount of money you owe each month compared to the money that comes in, would start to get lower and lower. Where you would start to see it where someone that is, not living, where they have a huge savings account would be able to purchase. Also, they would be looking for large amounts of reserves or assets that are in place. And during a real estate crash, it affects all real estate. So if you have a large portfolio of real estate, all of those valuations start to go down, which I'll bring up in just a moment. But in that, lending requirements would start to tighten and it would become much more difficult to get real estate, get lending. Now, you might be saying, well, would I need lending if a home's worth $200,000? I'm going to tell you this. 80% of all transactions that were done in 2023 required some sort of financing. So most likely for most people, they would have to have some sort of financing. And so in a crash, it would become difficult to do so. The next point is equity starts to shrink. Now you might be hearing this term equity. And what equity is what your house is worth minus what you owe on your house. And that amount that's in between the two is what is called equity, or what is your perceived earnings on the home. Now that doesn't happen until you sell the house, but in a housing crash, when a crash starts to happen, that equity shrinks because your value starts to come down. And once your value meets or goes past what you owe on it, you're actually in negative equity, meaning you'd have to pay the bank once you sold. So in a housing crash, your equity position would shrink rapidly if you were going to use real estate to try to fund another transaction, which I'll get to in point number 5. What I found also in point number 3 is rainy day funds or savings account, retirements accounts got tapped into for other things outside of housing or for being able to stay in housing. And so in that savings accounts, investment accounts, they started to dwindle. And so therefore, when those opportunities come where you start to see that affordable housing, which I would call more of a great deal or a steal of a deal, not a great deal, a steal of a deal, you might not be able to actually capitalize on those because your rainy day fund has been reduced, removed, or it's got to go towards something else. Now, the 4th point is this, is that going back to historical data, employment correlated with the housing market. So during this housing crisis, unemployment went up to 10%. And so again, in economic instability, companies tend to reduce their footprint. They start to reduce their workforce. And so going back to point number 1 with lending requirements, one of the foundational lending requirements is that you have a job and that you're able to pay back the loan. And so with employment correlating with housing during a housing crash, your employment might be affected as well, or even your bottom line if you own a business, because you have to reduce your footprint to be able to keep up with those demands. And so employment correlates with housing. And so in that, again, that's another reason why you might not be able to capitalize on that steal of a deal. The last one is loan programs such as home equity lines of credit or lines of credit, or being able to do some sort of bridge loan where, and a bridge loan is basically where you are buying a property before you sell yours, and there is an actual bridge, the gap with a loan. Those will actually freeze or go away completely because of the marketplace coming down, because of the housing actually reducing in value. And so with that being said, those are areas that people are using right now to expand upon their real estate portfolio that won't be in play during a housing crash. We actually saw a mini one of those in 2021 where the housing market wasn't crashing, but lenders put a freeze, a hold on their home equity lines or even their bridge products because of lending practices tightening down during a moment of uncertainty. So again, those are some of the things that really consider these 5 points of why affordable housing will not exist during a housing crash. Now, I want to clearly define what actual affordable housing is. Affordable housing is when the majority of buyers are able to afford the payment, where the payment amount of that purchase is actually in an affordable range. And why it's such a hot button topic right now in 2024 is during 2021 through 2022, interest rates for a loan were at an all-time low. We saw interest rates as low as 2.5%, 3% in some cases, well below 4%. And so what that can allow somebody to do is pay more for a home and still stay within their affordability. Well, in 2022, you started to see a significant raise in interest rates. Once that starts to happen, affordability falls apart. Now, the same home that you were able to purchase in 2021 is going to be significantly more in payment because of those interest rates. And so in a housing crash, affordability won't exist. But when there is a time where interest rates do lower to those historic lows, and we may not ever see that again, but if it does happen again, that is actually the area of opportunity for affordable housing. And so in that, while you will hear in the news, you'll watch YouTube videos like this that say a housing crash is coming, get ready, this is going to be awesome, we're going to be able to capitalize. Actually, during a housing crash or an economic stability, there's actually a lot of distress more than success. And so this is actually a great time for you to prepare. Preparing looks like more of how do you build that rainy day fund? How do you put your investments in the proper things that can hedge against some sort of economic stability. So I'd always recommend, obviously, first reaching out to your real estate professional and having a conversation with them about the current marketplace. What does it look like? Where are those areas of opportunity? But then also including an accountant and a financial advisor. I think those are two incredibly important people to have discussions with, who are licensed to properly have those discussions with you on affordability, and really, if there is a time like that again that comes up, that you can capitalize on that and build upon your real estate wealth. So those that are watching that are excited for a real estate crash, it's not coming anytime soon that I can see with the data that I look at each and every month. But I will say this, again, it is time for you to prepare, because we never know when that economic instability comes up. And so you want to just be in a place where you fully understand what your current position looks like, so that way you can ride out any of those economic instabilities like a real estate crash. Well, I hope you found incredible value in this. Reminder that this came from a lot of questions that I get asked about the marketplace. And so if you have a question or a topic that I should cover in my next video in regards to a real estate crash, make sure you put it down in the comments below. I love to see what you put in there, and it allows me to really create content that can answer those questions for you. And speaking of content, if you are just meeting me for the first time, I highly recommend you hit that subscribe button as well as the bell button up above, so that way you're notified of the new videos that are hitting and the answers to your questions. But until next time, friends, thank you for watching, and remember, today is a great day that you can #create positive change. All right, take care and have a great day.